There is an aspect of astrophotography that we often overlook, and that is the data that we collect and how we store it, save it for future use. Basically, data hygiene. So if you're doing astrophotography, you know that every night, or every clear night, we'll be pointing our telescopes and cameras to specific targets in the sky, and we'll be taking many exposures of the same targets. They could be 30 seconds long, they could be 5 minutes long, but we take many exposures, many pictures of the same target, and at the end we will be stacking all of those exposures on top of one another to get a final image. And the problem comes with the fact that when we're taking so many exposures, we're actually taking a lot of data. We're generating gigabytes of data at a time, even night by night. To give you some idea, a camera like the very popular ASI 2600 mm Pro or MC Pro will take each frame, each image taken by that camera is roughly 52 megabytes. So it's not small. If you go for a larger camera, like a full frame camera, the ASI 6200 mm or MC Pro cameras, each single frame takes something like 122 megabytes of data on disk. So if you're imaging broadband, like you're imaging galaxies, that kind of stuff, without any specific light pollution filter or a very light pollution filter like the Optolong L Pro, for instance, you're typically taking exposures that could be just 1 minute long, 2 minutes long, or if you're in a very light polluted area like me, you limit your exposures to even shorter times, like 30 seconds. That's my default. For me, when I'm doing broadband, my images are 30 seconds long each. And when you take 30-second exposures throughout the night, you can end up with hundreds of exposures after one night. And if after a single night of imaging, I've taken like 500 exposures of 30 seconds long each, if I was using a 2600 mm or MC camera, I would end up with over like something 20-25 gigabytes of data. And if I was using a full frame camera like the 6200 MCR MM Pro, I would end up with something like 59, 58 gigabytes of data in a single night. And that's of course a lot of data. I know that a lot of us still use computers that have like 512 gigs of storage. After like 10 nights, there's no more storage available. And even if we are a bit better than that, we have 1 terabyte of storage, 2 terabytes of storage, it fills up quickly. So there is a temptation to basically get rid of this raw data after you've done your stack. So you take your raw frames at the end of the night or several nights spent on the target, you've stacked them, and so you obtain a master frame, like the sum of all of your individual frames. That's what you're going to be using to process and publish images in the end, so we can just discard the raw frames that we had obtained from the camera. And indeed, that is possible, but it's also very bad practice because a lot of the targets we image, they don't change year over year. So what can end up happening is that the following year, you'll be taking data, images of the same target all over again. And then it becomes much more effective to be stacking all of your individual raw frames from last year and this year to get a far better result than to just start from scratch or to try to combine your master images kind of manually. And there's other things as well, the stacking methods, the weighing methods of your individual subframes, etc. They evolve over time. We get better and better solutions that give us better and better results. So by getting rid of our raw data, we are robbing ourselves from the opportunity of stacking it anew in the future with better techniques. Okay, so you can see it is good practice to keep that raw data, but a lot of people don't. I've been guilty of that myself. I have tons of master frames that I have in my catalog that no longer have any raw data. And this is simply because I did not have enough disk space. And there's a second issue that comes with like good data practices in the hobby. It's losing your data. So a few years ago, Astrobin, one of those websites that is the reference for sharing like high quality images, they got an outage. They lost a lot of data for a lot of people, myself included. And for a lot of people, the data they had on Astrobin was actually their only backup or even their primary source of data. they just lost their data. And I had a secondary issue, actually a couple of years after that, which was my hard disk had a failure, and I lost all data on the hard disk, and that's where I had my astrophotography data. So you can see there's two problems we have to deal with. It's safety of the data, and it is volume of data that we need to keep and that we absolutely should keep. And up to now, I've actually made a video on the topic. I've used a very cheap solution, an enclosure like that actually hosts two hard disks inside. Each is actually 3 terabytes. I thought it was 4, but it's actually 3, maybe even 2, I don't remember, but not a lot of space that is available to me. And I have configured this enclosure to work as RAID 1, which means that those 2 disks in the drive, they mirror one another. So even if I have 2 3 terabytes hard drives in there, I don't have access to 6 terabytes of space. I have only access to 3 terabytes of data, and anything I put in one drive is mirrored onto the other drive, which means that if one fails, I can get the second out and get my data from there. So that's a very basic data protection tool. Problem is it's loud, it vibrates a lot, it's low quality, it takes forever to get data from my computer. It's connected via USB, so I can only access it via my main computer when it's on, and I can share the drive over a network. It's a bit of a mess and not very easy to deal with. So I need another solution. And I was looking for solutions, for commercial solutions where I could have basically enclosures that can contain many hard disks, and I could buy high quality hard disks and pair them together to get an even more data reliable kind of solution. And that is something called RAID 5, which is available once you have 3 hard drives or more in your system. And I was actually looking at a variety of stuff, including stuff from this company, Synology, which makes a lot of B2B stuff as well, so high quality stuff, but necessarily expensive at the same time. That said, how much do you value your data? Having lost it multiple times, I value it a lot. And I was doing my research about what was the best hard drive bay to get when, out of the blue, Synology contacted me and said like, hey, we've heard that astrophotographers, they gather a lot of data. Can we have a call with you to understand the needs of the astrophotography hobby? And so I had a call with them. I explained to them that our needs were not super complex. I mean, these products, they can do a ton of stuff. But our needs is just basically backing stuff up, right? So it's simple needs, but we want data reliability. And I explained that. I explained how much data we get each night, etc. And by the end of the call, they were like, can we sponsor a video? And how much would you need to be paid for that? I'm like, nope, I don't do sponsored videos. So I can make a review, although I'm not super qualified to do that, at least, showcase me using this device. And they basically told me they would actually send the device to me for free. I get to keep it, which means I am being compensated. You need to be aware of that. But what did they send? They sent their DiskStation DS923 Plus, which is a 4-bay hard drive enclosure that is also a NAS, network access storage. So I'll be plugging this into my router, and any computer, phone, whatever that is on my Wi-Fi or wired computer will be able to access that depending on what parameters I set it up with. And at the same time, the 4 boxes at the top, they sent 4 8 terabyte hard disks. And because I'm going to be setting them up in RAID 5, it means that I will actually have the ability to access the data of 3 of them. So that will give me 24 terabytes of storage to play with. Finally, I will be able to really keep all of the data that I'm taking night after night after night, because I was really starting to get into a pickle recently. So let me quickly open this and show you what's inside. I'm going to put the hard disks aside without dropping them, because who knew that hard disks don't like being dropped? And I am going to open the main box to see what is inside. A power cable, which is always good. A power brick, also good, with two network cables. This is again because this is network access storage. I will not be plugging this directly into my computer. I will be plugging this directly into my router, and then any device on my network, again depending on the configurations that I choose, will be able to access my astrophotography data. And of course, the thing has like an internal CPU and RAM and stuff like that. It can run programs on its own. It can, duplicate data from computers on your network. It can do all sorts of weird, crazy stuff, but I'll stay basic, at least for the time being. Then we get into the real stuff, and it is actually much smaller and lighter than I expected. By the way, of course, if you value data, and you want to buy something like this, I'll have the links down in the description. Okay, and here we have the Synology bay. It has two fans to keep the hard drives running cool when there's a lot of data going into them. It has two LAN ports, so two network ports, and at the front it has the important stuff. It has the disk bays. So 4 disks are available for us to put in. The enclosures, seems we can just, nice mechanism, and with that, the goal will be to just put hard disks into each of those plastic clips. And then at the very bottom of the cage, there's actually a board that has the proper hard disk interface to connect it to the whole thing, so that the 4 drives will be connected together and they will be operating in this RAID 5 configuration, where one drive is actually keeping track of all of the others, basically, kind of. And as I open the box, I see that immediately there's an additional memory module, so additional RAM that they sent me. This RAM, by the way, is ECC type of RAM, so there's some bit checking on top of normal RAM. It actually costs more than normal RAM because it is more reliable, effectively, as I understand it. And for our purposes, we probably don't need this additional RAM, but if you're going to be running some stuff on the NAS itself, on this enclosure itself, since it has a CPU in there and basic RAM, it's better to have additional RAM. So I'll be installing it later. We also have the first 8 terabyte hard disk from Synology. And so here we get the 8 terabyte hard drive that they sent over. Synology hard drive, 8 terabytes. And the way to actually install the drive into those holders is that there's those little plastic tabs here on the side. I can remove, I can put in the hard disks in place. And we align some screw holes on the hard disk with some small holes on the side of that plastic enclosure. And then we can put back this tab that I just removed on both sides. And that's one side. That's another side. This is much easier than I expected. Okay, we have one hard drive ready. I'll be setting them aside for now because I want to remove all of the drives to install this additional memory module as well. And we are done. Here is my pile of 4 8 terabyte hard drives for a total of 32 gigs, although it will be 24 gigs available once I have RAID 5 in place. And this is probably the most amount of storage I've held in my hand before. So yeah, that's pretty cool. It's probably not a lot by a lot of people's standards, but yeah, this is the most storage that I've ever had in my hand. And yes, as expected and as is in the manual, I don't know if you can see it, but there's actually a memory module in here, and we can add a second bar of RAM in there, and that's what I'll be doing. And this is how it looks like. There is this warranty void if removed message on it. As far as I know, this is not valid. I mean, it's actually not enforceable, at least in the United States, but yeah, whatever. So let me carefully install it in there. Okay, and I heard a couple of satisfying clicks from the clips there. So I think it is installed and we are ready to install the hard disks into the NAS, the network access storage that we have here. This is exciting. Okay, and there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. That was completely toolless, so besides me. So I am happy that this seems to be working. So now the next step will be for me to power it on and also put it on my network somehow. So I will need to connect one of the provided network cables to my Wi-Fi router. And so I'll show you how this looks like. Okay, so this is not the final placement of the server. I'm just testing it out for now before I put it in its final place. And we have at the back the server connected via a LAN Ethernet cable to my router and also to power. To note, there's a second Ethernet port that I should be able to use with the second provided network cable so that I can have basically twice the speed using a technology called link aggregation that is available both on this NAS and on my router. That would allow for faster file transfer. For now, I'm just not going to try that. I want to make sure that it just works. So let's turn this on and see what happens. So I've read that the LED will should blink for a while. It's going to initialize each of the hard drives that is in the hard disk bay, and then we'll see like the lights turn on. And apparently the first things that we'll need to do is to install the management system on the NAS, and from the manual it seems that it means this status light will be blinking, which is perfectly fine. So let me give it a minute for it to initialize. Okay, the LED, the blue LED is solid, the disks have been checked, we are apparently ready to go, and I could feel the disks spooling up. So now we are ready to go to my computer and basically follow the instructions in the manual to get this completely ready for use. Okay, I'm on my PC and the manual says to go to find.synology.com on a PC with the same network as the NAS, which is what I have, and there we go. We do have the Synology network access server, and it is not installed. So I guess I can click on connect, agree to the terms of the EULA after having read through them extremely carefully, as always, and welcome to your Synology DS923 Plus drive. So I guess install. And yes, we're going to download the latest version from the website. I'm fine that all of the data on the drives will be deleted because there's nothing on them in the first place. Those are completely new drives. And continue. Now it's going to install and we should be ready to go and use it as our backup storage. And it's ready, so let's start. Okay, I'll need to put a name, account, password, etc. So let me put that in. And these are my settings. That way I can access the drive with this information. Let's go to the next. This is just the initial one-time setup. And we're going to just install everything as recommended. This is the first time that I have to do this, but basically this is not just a drive. It is a server, so it has an OS running on it and will manage all of those drives with the RAID configuration to have like data resilience to disk errors, and it can do a lot of stuff beyond just acting as a backup for my astrophotography data. And it seems that with an account I can get like access to the drive from anywhere, which is going to be convenient for me when I go to France and I want to access my data. So absolutely I will create such an account. And it was a very quick process using my Google account as like single sign-on, so very easy to do, and let's keep going. Then I can set up a name apparently that I can use to access my NAS from the internet. Of course, I'm sure I can turn it off to avoid, security issues. But I'll put my ID and then decide on that. And it gave me both a URL that I can use to access my drive from a browser, as well as a name that I can use from the Synology like smartphone app. So that's good as well. There are some other tools that I will leave be for now. And we are getting through the setup of our storage server. Then, and now we are getting to what appears to be an actual full-fledged operating system. This thing is indeed a computer. I'm gonna do whatever it tells me to do, just install the stuff that it needs. Yes, I want two-factor authentication, because two-factor authentication is really necessary whenever you give something access from the internet, which is what I'm doing right now. So definitely I'm doing that. I can use either the mobile app to approve the sign-in whenever someone wants to sign in, or use a temporary code that I can check each time in an app. So I'm just going to do the approve sign-in. And now from the Synology app, I can actually scan this QR code and that's it. We are good. I have my two-factor authentication. And we are done with the security stuff. I've applied this. I think I can close this. And yeah, wow, this is this is pretty cool. This is running on my network access storage. Yes, sure, I am going to create a storage pool and volume because this is what is going to actually create the drives that I can access and put data on. This is kind of a dream for a geek like me. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. So now I can choose the RAID number that I want. This is in the event of a drive failure. Do I lose my data? So RAID 5, I need at least 3 drives. I have 4, so we're good. And a drive fault tolerance is 1, so we can lose 1 drive and still have access to the data. So which is pretty good, and it's a very good compromise usually. But we also have like a RAID 6 that needs 4 drives at least, which I also have and has a drive fault tolerance of 2, but apparently at the cost of performance. And so I don't really like losing performance, and I think like for a home setup like that, the fault tolerance of 1 is probably good enough. And I can go overkill with RAID 10, which is basically mirroring across like from 2 drives to 2 other drives where we have another, drive fault tolerance. It's kind of, it would be, because I have 4, it would also be a drive tolerance of 2, but we also have very high performance when using the data on the drive. These are all sorts of stuff that are available, but I think for most people, RAID 5 is probably the best compromise in terms of performance versus fault tolerance. So that's what I'm going to go to. And I'm going to select all of the drives that I have in here. They're all 8 terabyte hard drives. A fun fact, in the marketing, 8 terabytes uses the 1000 multiplier to determine what a terabyte is relative to a gigabyte. But in computer terms, we actually need to multiply or divide by 1024. This is why the drive size computed by the computer is always smaller than the drive size in the marketing. Yeah, you always end up being disappointed, but still, that gives me a total capacity of almost 22 terabytes of data. That is, to me, absolutely insane. And I'm going to set that up as RAID 5. I'm not going to change anything there, just, modify. And in here, I want to say that this RAID 5 across all of the drives will use all of the available space effectively. That way, it's the whole drive used as RAID 5. And that's what I'm going to do. And click Next. And keep the recommended settings. And the data that I'm going to put on those drives is not going to be sensitive data. It's just data that I find important, so I will not encrypt the volume. But you can see the amazing amount of capabilities that we get. All of the data on the newly added drive will be erased. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes, absolutely. I can tell, this is well done. I've used a NAS before. It was terrible. It was from Western Digital. It was single drive, and it was, again, terrible. This is a completely different experience. And so I will let it create its RAID 5 array of drives. And this is going really to be my ultimate storage. We are done, we are healthy, and we have CPU and RAM. And I want to be notified in case there's any failure with my drive. So yes, thank you. I will definitely set that up. And it was a very simple process. I cut it because I didn't want you to see my personal email address. Yeah, and it's doing some optimization, whatever that is. It's going to take 1 day, 6 hours and 26 minutes. What is this optimization? I don't know, but I will let it do that before I transfer data to the drive. And I noticed that it is optimizing in the background. That it's going to take 21 hours, but I believe that I can use the drive as is without any issues. And so I'm going to, take a quick tour, I guess, as they suggest. And nice, there's, wow, system monitoring, and it can tell me when, I have errors, when my CPU usage is too high, that kind of stuff. This is overkill. but it is really cool for sure. And there's those apps that were recommended: Synology Drive, Synology Photos, and oh, I see. So now Synology Drive, I can actually see the drive, what's happening there. Synology Photos, I can maybe I should like download my photos from Google Photos, put them in there as a physical backup. There are lots of stuff that seem to be possible there. I'm a bit overwhelmed actually by all of the stuff that is doable. But now obviously I want to access the drives as if they were a folder on my computer, right? So how do I do that? I'm going to open up the control panel. File services. There it is. Enable SMB. SMB stands for Samba. It is the network file sharing protocol that can be used by Windows devices. So this is perfect for me, and it tells me that if I type this in Windows Explorer, I should be able to access my drive. So let's try it out. Aha, there it is. So it asks me for network credentials, which is good. I set that up to make sure that people don't have access willy-nilly to my drive. And I'm going to remember my credentials, say OK, and hopefully there it is. We are accessing the network drive. And I should be able to like create folders, let's say Astro Photography. There we go. And now I can transfer my stuff to this folder. This looks very nice. Another thing we can do is actually map this as an actual drive that I can have accessible. So I can go to this PC on Windows, click on those three dots there, map a network drive, and this address will be the network drive that I will have access to. Just click on Finish, and I can just click on Browse in there and say like, yeah, I want to access quivnas/home, finish. And there it is. We have this appearing as a drive that I have access from my computer perfectly easily. And now I'm really wondering about all of the capabilities that are useful for us as photographers. I think really the only real useful stuff that we have immediately is just accessing it and putting our stuff in there. But I'm very curious about all of those apps that are available. We have like whatever this is with advanced features like remote wipe, that kind of stuff. Okay, whatever, but there's a package center. I'm going to agree to everything. And there are apparently tons of stuff that we are able to do. So you can configure it as a media server. You can configure it as, I don't know, we already have the Samba service open. We can, I don't know what we can do, but there are tons of apps that are available. A Git server for programmers. You can, a Plex media server to stream your movies and stuff to whatever device is connected to your network. Oh, wow. Okay, there's a lot of things that are available, but you know, for pure astrophotography, I don't think this is necessary, but it does seem that there is so much more than meets the eye or than is strictly necessary for astrophotography. If you were to buy this thing here, this DS923 Plus, sure, it can use like RAID 5 as I've done to be like pure backup, but at the same time, it can do a lot more. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting, it's probably basic for anyone, you know, watching and familiar with that kind of stuff, but I wasn't expecting to have access to a whole OS on the darn thing with a UI and stuff like that. This is honestly pretty impressive. Completely overkill for the hobby, but pretty impressive. Just to make sure as well that what we configured was actually working, I've disabled Wi-Fi on my smartphone, so I'm only connected via 4G, which is not within my home network, and I want to make sure that I can access my files. And I've installed the app that Synology provides, and there it is. Yes, I can access my files even on the go. That's going to be useful to me whenever I'm traveling and I need to access my astrophotography data. It's going to be useful. So yeah, it looks to be working exactly as expected. My next step will be to take the files from my existing drive and putting them all onto the Synology drive. Oh, and as I mentioned earlier in the video, I've now plugged in the second network cable to my router. And in my router parameters, I have enabled the link aggregation onto the two Ethernet ports that are connected now to the Synology network access storage. And we can actually go into the Synology control panel network interface, and I can create a bond between LAN 1 and LAN 2 stands for. So I'm going to select that, click next, cross my fingers, click next, and done. And there we go, it seems to be done, which means that now when I access the drives, especially from my devices that are connected with better than 1 gigabit in Ethernet, I will get really fast speeds to put files onto the drives, which is perfect. So now we are ready for me to transfer all of the files from my current kind of clunky drive enclosure with those 2 disks in there that is running out of space onto my new super luxury network access storage drive with those 22 or 24 terabytes, depending whether you're talking tech or marketing, available to us. This is going to be the dream. I want to show you a bit also the file structure that I've been using to keep track of my data correctly. Before we do that, if this is interesting to you, you may want to go and like the video, leave a comment down below, let us know how you deal with your data. Do you have cloud back? Do you have local backups? Do you use network access servers / storage? That kind of stuff. It would be very interesting to know what your rules and your best practices are. We can have a knowledge exchange down in the comments. And if you're new to the channel and you like astrophotography, you could consider subscribing. I make tons of equipment reviews, guides, PixInsight tutorials, serial tutorials, smart telescopes, everything is on the channel. So if you don't want to miss that, you can subscribe. If you want to help me out at no cost to you, and you're planning on buying anything from Amazon, High Point Scientific, Agena, First Light Optics, etc., if you do so after clicking the links that I have in the description, it will help me out, again, at no cost to you. And if you want to sponsor the channel directly, you can become a channel member. This is the join button next to the subscribe button, or you can become a Patreon member. I have the link down in the description. My channel members, my Patreon members, you support this channel, you sponsor this channel would not exist without you guys. So thank you so much for helping me out and for making all of this possible. Anyway, let's go to my data structure. So basically in there, I have like this Astro folder. This is the dump. This is where I have all of my old data back when I did not have any good data practices. In there, most of the time, I have my master frames in random folders all over the place, like mastered frames, processed frames. I don't know really what equipment I was using to capture these data. I don't know what I was doing. Sometimes I don't have even the raw master frame anymore. I just have like the processed JPEG. It's honestly a bit of a disaster overall. And yeah, it's a dump, literally a dump across the years. I've lost so much data to data outages in the past. And so it's a bit of a sad view of all of this data that I have from years ago. But what I've been doing more recently in the recent years is that I try to have like one folder per target, and within each target folder, I have a folder per basically imaging session or sessions with the same equipment. Like this one was taken with my Quattro telescope with the IMX 571 sensor and Toptech camera. The filter was an L filter. And that one was taken with the Carbon Star, again L filter with the ZW 2600 MC Duo. And then in each I have my master frames, and I also have my calibrated frames. So all of the frames that were output from the camera, but they're also calibrated with flat frames and bias frames and maybe dark frames, it all depends. And this is the best I've done up to now. I think it's probably better to keep the actual uncalibrated frames together with your calibration frames, because maybe in the future we'll have more advanced techniques to calibrate your images more efficiently than we do right now. Who knows? I don't believe that's the case, but for now I've gotten to the point where I'm just using those calibrated frames saved. And my metadata is basically in the folder names to know, what I've been taking stuff with, and then I can just count the number of frames that I have in my folders, and I know how many subframes I was taking. And each of those subframes, oh, here I don't have it. I lost those calibrated frames. Probably I didn't get like, I don't know why. I don't know why, but this is bad practice. Here I have the proper calibrated frames, and each we can see is 300 seconds long at minus 10 degrees Celsius. So the metadata, the data about my data, is in the file names and in the folder names. There are definitely much better ways of doing so, but this is what I have right now. And again, let me know down in the comments if you have better practices that you would like to suggest that I use instead of this particular folder structure. For the moment, it's working decently well. Okay, and now I'm just going to take everything, and I should be able to go into astrophotography there and drag and drop and see what happens. It's going to be a very long time, I'm sure, to copy everything over. Oh, it's actually much faster than I expected. Wait, what? I only have 2 terabytes of data, roughly? My drives were not 3 terabytes, but 2 terabytes. Come on, Quiv. Yeah, I was being optimistic for whatever reason. But now, it's going to be done in 4 minutes. That's actually pretty good. It's all going to be on my NAS. It's going to be available to me wherever I am in the world without compromising the security of my main computers. It's just like if someone accesses my NAS, well, they have access to my astrophotography data, big deal. And that's it. I'll let it do its job, and then I'll have access to all of my data wherever I am. High-speed access, this is honestly super cool. So, summary, as you can tell, I am not qualified to give a proper review of this Synology DS923 Plus, but I can do a review from the purposes of astrophotography and simple things out of the way. It is overkill for us, but at the same time, it's exactly what the doctor ordered. I have a lot of storage space now, together with data reliability, data redundancy. I can lose one drive and still be fine. I could have been even more paranoid and I could have gone with RAID 6 or RAID 10, so I could lose 2 drives and still have all of my data available. But what I can also see is that beyond the bounds of astrophotography, and this is not something that I will review on this channel, there seems to be a lot of other applications that you can add on top. And I'm actually thinking about it. I could use that that NAS as a Plex server, so I can stream my media to my devices connected to my home network, or even outside of my home network, I assume. That sounds pretty cool, actually. And of course, some stuff I haven't even touched upon because I'll be doing moving files around manually. I don't think I need a sync between my main computer and the Synology drive bay, but there is indeed a Windows Synology drive client that lets you basically sync your files between your computer and the network access storage automatically. And also you have access to file history and stuff. I mean, it's good stuff. Good stuff, completely overkill for me, but lots of good stuff that is available. So of course, one thing that's very important is how much does this all cost? And it's definitely not cheap. I was just looking around and I saw that this 4-day disk station without any disks is sold new for $600. That is not nothing for sure. There might be some other disk stations that are cheaper than that. It's honestly not something I'm super familiar with. But in a way, it makes sense because this is an actual PC that supports up to 4 drives. But again, not cheap. At the same time, you can put any drive you want in there. So if you look at 3.5-inch 8 terabyte hard drives, I mean, ideally you won't have exactly the same brand all over. It's something like $120 to maybe $200 per drive. So talking about 4 drives, that's at least $500. We're already above $1,000. Still cheaper than a lot of astrophotography equipment. And if you were to buy the drives on the Synology website themselves, these are the drives that I believe I got, and they are $210. So those 4 drives, they're worth $840. That's not cheap. Again, not cheap, but it's your data we're talking about. And Synology themselves, they offer like a cheaper single disk, so no data redundancy in that case, but cheaper drive called like the B Station with 4 terabytes, and it is get $220 US. Otherwise, on Amazon, if you search for 2-bay RAID enclosures like what I have right now, stuff comes up. And there's multiple brands there, and there are cheaper ones, and there are more expensive ones like Synology. But it does get better reviews, and this one is like, what, $190 US. Again, I'll have all of the links down in the description. And with this one, you can buy this and buy 2 drives on top of it to use of whatever size you want. In this case though, it is best to set them up as a RAID 1. So if you buy 2 8 terabyte hard drives, you'll only have 8 terabytes of usable storage for your astrophotography. Still better than the 2 apparently that I had up to now. So what are your thoughts? Again, what are your data hygiene practices? Let us know down in the comments. If you like the video, click that like button. I can report back once I've used this drive some more. If I find any issues, I'll put like a comment or something like that. But for now, it looks to be very well built. I have one of my Patreon supporters as well, Dave, who is a big fan of Synology and has been recommending this to me and got into some very techy and geeky details with me, helping me out. Thanks so much for your help, Dave. So I'm not alone in liking what I'm seeing right now. Again, remember, I got this for free, even though I am not paid. And this is not a sponsored video. I am effectively being compensated by receiving this item, but I really like it. But with that, that's all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe or, sponsor the channel or help the channel out by using the links I have in the description. But more important than any of that, don't forget whenever you can to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.